House of the Dragon's second season has left viewers on the edge of their seats, but what most fans don't realize is that the bloodiest, most shocking moments are yet to come. The Dance of the Dragons is about to get so much worse. I've studied Fire and Blood extensively, and today I'm going to reveal exactly how this Targaryen civil war ends. And trust me, it's more brutal and tragic than anything we've seen so far. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this conflict destroys House Targaryen forever and sets up their eventual downfall nearly 200 years later. And the sixth revelation might be the most disturbing death in the entire Game of Thrones universe. Before we dive in, I need to warn you. This video contains major spoilers from George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood, which tells the complete story of the Dance of the Dragons. If you don't want to know how House of the Dragon ends, now's the time to click away. For those sticking around, I'm going to explain the 8 most crucial events that will happen in the upcoming seasons, picking up right where Season 2 left off. These aren't just predictions, these are the canonical events that will unfold according to the source material, though the show might alter some details. What makes the Dance of the Dragons so fascinating is that there are no true heroes, just deeply flawed people making terrible decisions that lead to the near extinction of the most powerful house in Westeros. So let's break down how this Targaryen bloodbath will play out. Blood and cheese, the most horrific revenge in Westeros. The first major event we'll see is the infamous blood and cheese incident, and it's going to shock viewers even more than the Red Wedding. After Aemon killed Lucerys, Daemon decides that a son for a son isn't enough. He wants Aemon's nephew dead. Daemon hires 2 killers, a former gold cloak called Blood and a rat catcher known as Cheese, who knows all the secret passages in the Red Keep. They infiltrate the royal apartments and find Queen Helaena with her 3 children, Jaehaerys, Jaehaera, and Maelor. Here's where it gets truly disturbing. They force Helaena to choose which of her sons will die. When she refuses, they tell her that if she doesn't choose, they'll deeply violate her daughter before killing both boys. Helaena, broken and desperate, chooses her younger son Maelor, thinking they might spare him due to his age. Instead, they kill Jaehaerys, her eldest son and heir to the throne, decapitating the 6-year-old prince in front of his mother and siblings. They then flee with his head. This act of vengeance is so horrific that it destroys Helaena mentally. She never recovers from the trauma and guilt of having chosen between her children, only to have the wrong one killed anyway. It also eliminates any possibility of peace between the Greens and Blacks, as Aegon II will never forgive this atrocity. The show has been building toward this moment, and it will likely open Season 3 with this shocking sequence. It perfectly encapsulates how this war corrupts everyone involved, turning even Daemon, who we've been somewhat sympathetic toward, into someone willing to orchestrate the murder of an innocent child. The Battle of the Gullet, the largest naval battle in Westeros history. The next major event will be the Battle of the Gullet, which will make the naval battles in Game of Thrones look like child's play. This massive sea battle occurs when the Triarchy, an alliance of the free cities, joins the war on the Green's side. Corlys Velaryon's fleet, commanded by Aelin Velaryon, faces off against 90 ships from the Triarchy. Meanwhile, Prince Jaehaerys flies his dragon Vermax over the battle. The fighting is brutal, with thousands dying as ships burn across Blackwater Bay. The battle turns catastrophic when Vermax flies too low and is pierced by scorpion bolts. The dragon crashes into the water, where he's swarmed by sailors who hack him apart. Jaehaerys either drowns or is killed by a crossbow bolt. Accounts differ in the book, so the show will likely choose the more dramatic option. This is a devastating blow to Rhaenyra, who loses her eldest son and heir. It also marks a turning point in how dragons are used in battle, as it proves they're not invincible. The naval battle itself will be one of the most expensive sequences ever filmed for television, potentially surpassing even the Battle of the Blackwater from Game of Thrones. The aftermath leaves the Velaryon fleet crippled, weakening Rhaenyra's forces significantly. It also sets up the next major event, as the war begins to spread beyond just the Targaryens and their immediate allies. The fall of King's Landing. Rhaenyra takes the Iron Throne. Despite these setbacks, Rhaenyra's forces managed to take King's Landing in a relatively bloodless coup. With Aemond and Criston Cole leading the Green armies elsewhere, and Aegon II injured from his battle with Rhaenyra's forces, the city falls easily. Rhaenyra finally sits on the Iron Throne, the moment she's been fighting for since the beginning. But her triumph is short-lived and comes at a terrible cost. The small folk who once cheered for her now call her King Maegor with teats due to her increasingly harsh rule. What makes this moment so powerful is its hollowness. Rhaenyra achieves her lifelong ambition only to find the throne uncomfortable and the crown heavy. The city she rules is starving, her treasury is empty, and her supporters expect rewards she cannot provide. The show will likely portray this as a Pyrrhic victory, with Emma Darcy showing Rhaenyra's growing paranoia and isolation. She begins executing anyone she suspects of treason, including Tyland Lannister, the master of ships who refuses to reveal where he hid the royal treasury. This period of Rhaenyra's rule lasts only half a year, but it fundamentally changes her character. The idealistic princess who believed in her right to rule becomes a harsh, suspicious queen surrounded by enemies both real and imagined. It's a transformation reminiscent of Daenerys in the final season of Game of Thrones, but with much more careful development. The storming of the Dragonpit. Dragons meet their match. Perhaps the most spectacular and chaotic event will be the storming of the Dragonpit. As Rhaenyra's rule grows more oppressive and food shortages worsen, the people of King's Landing riot. A religious zealot known as the Shepherd whips the mob into a frenzy, declaring dragons to be demons and abominations. Thousands of starving, desperate commoners storm the dragon pit where the Targaryen dragons are kept. What follows is absolute carnage. 5 dragons are inside: Shrikos, Morgul, Tyraxes, Dreamfire, and Syrax, Rhaenyra's dragon. The mob, armed with nothing but farm tools and desperation, somehow manages to kill 4 of these dragons. Shrikos is killed by a man who drives a spear through her eye. Morgul is killed by the Burning Knight, a man in stolen armor who burns to death while slaying the dragon. Tyraxes is killed in his pit by hundreds of attackers. Dreamfire brings down the dome of the dragon pit, crushing herself and hundreds of rioters. Syrax, Rhaenyra's dragon, flies above the chaos, but is eventually pulled down by grappling hooks and killed by the mob. This sequence will be visually stunning but also deeply disturbing, as it shows that even dragons, the source of Targaryen power, can be overcome by enough desperate people. This event symbolizes the beginning of the end for the Targaryens. Their greatest advantage, their dragons, are proven vulnerable not just to other dragons but to common people pushed too far. It's a powerful statement about the limits of power and the consequences of neglecting the small folk. The Moon of the Three Kings. Chaos reigns in King's Landing. Following the riots, Rhaenyra flees King's Landing, unable to control the city. What follows is a period known as the Moon of the Three Kings, where 3 different factions claim control of the capital. First is Trystane Truefire, a squire who claims to be a bastard son of King Viserys. He sets up court in the Red Keep with the help of a former Gold Cloak. Second is a boy known as Gaemon Palahair, who rules from a brothel on the Street of Silk, issuing decrees that are surprisingly progressive, like equal inheritance for daughters. The third king is the Shepherd, who controls most of the city through religious fervor. This period shows the complete breakdown of order in the capital. With both Targaryen factions focused on destroying each other, common people suffer the most. The show will likely use this to comment on how power struggles among elites devastate ordinary lives. The Moon of the Three Kings only lasts about a month before Aegon the Sing's forces retake the city, brutally putting down all 3 pretenders. But it demonstrates how quickly the Targaryen grip on power can slip when they're divided, foreshadowing their eventual downfall centuries later. This sequence will be chaotic and violent, showing King's Landing at its most lawless. It's a stark contrast to the orderly, prosperous city we saw under Viserys at the beginning of the series, highlighting how much damage the dance has already done. The Death of Helaena, the most disturbing suicide in Westeros. Queen Helena's fate is perhaps the most tragic of all the characters in the dance. After witnessing her son's murder and being forced to choose which child would die, she falls into a deep depression. She stops eating, rarely leaves her chambers, and speaks only to her daughter Jaehaera. When Rhaenyra takes King's Landing, Helaena is kept as a hostage but treated well. However, her mental state continues to deteriorate. One night, she jumps from her window in Maegor's Holdfast, impaling herself on the iron spikes below. The circumstances of her death are suspicious. Some claim she was murdered on Mysaria's orders, thrown from the window by Luther Largent, the commander of the Gold Cloaks. Others believe it was suicide, the final escape from her unbearable grief. The show will likely portray this as one of the most heartbreaking moments in the series. Fia Saban has already done an excellent job showing Helena's gentle nature and her descent into trauma after Blood and Cheese. Her death represents the innocent casualties of war. She never wanted the throne, never plotted against anyone, yet suffered horribly. Helena's suicide also has major political ramifications. The small folk who loved her blame Rhaenyra for her death, calling her Maegor with teats and kinslayer. This further turns public opinion against Rhaenyra, contributing to her eventual downfall. The battle above the God's Eye, Dragon versus Dragon. The most spectacular sequence will undoubtedly be the battle above the God's Eye, where Daemon Targaryen faces off against Aemon One-Eye in a dragon duel for the ages. After leaving King's Landing, Daemon takes Harrenhal as his base. He sends a message to Aemond, who's been terrorizing the Riverlands with his dragon Vhagar, challenging him to face him alone. Aemond, confident in Vhagar's size and power, accepts. The battle takes place above the God's Eye Lake. Daemon on Caraxes versus Aemond on Vhagar, the largest living dragon in the world. Both men are skilled dragon riders. Both dragons are fearsome, but Vhagar is significantly larger and older. What follows is the most epic dragon battle in Westerosi history. The dragons clash in midair, tearing at each other with teeth and claws, while their riders try to kill each other with swords. Finally, Daemon does something unexpected. He leaps from Caraxes to Vhagar, plunging his Valyrian steel sword Dark Sister through Aemond's remaining eye. The dragons, locked in combat, plummet into the God's Eye. The impact is so violent that Caraxes' body washes up on shore days later, while Vhagar's remains aren't found for years. Neither rider survives. Aemond's body is found years later, still chained to his saddle with Dark Sister through his eye socket. Daemon's body is never recovered. This sequence will be the visual centerpiece of the entire series, a duel between two of the most dangerous men in Westeros on two of the most powerful dragons. It's also thematically perfect, as both men, who have committed terrible acts throughout the war, destroy each other in a final act of mutual annihilation. The Hour of the Wolf, the unexpected end of the dance. The final major event I'll explain is how the Dance of the Dragons actually ends, and it's not how most viewers expect. After Rhaenyra is captured and fed to Aegon II's dragon Sunfire, it seems the Greens have won. But Rhaenyra's son, Aegon III, still lives, and the Black's armies are still strong. As both sides prepare for more fighting, something unexpected happens. Corlys Velaryon switches sides again, abandoning Aegon II and supporting Rhaenyra's son instead. Aegon II, now crippled from his many battle wounds and addicted to milk of the poppy, refuses all peace offers. Then, in a sudden twist, Aegon II is poisoned by his own counselors who realize the war is unwinnable. With his death, the Dance of the Dragons technically ends with the Blacks victorious, but at a terrible cost. What follows is the Hour of the Wolf, where Cregan Stark marches south with a massive northern army, arriving just after Aegon II's death. He takes control of King's Landing and begins executing those he considers traitors, regardless of which side they fought for. Eventually, Rhaenyra's son Aegon III is crowned king, with Aegon II's daughter Jaehaera as his queen to unite the claims. But the real winners are the great lords of Westeros, who use the Targaryen civil war to increase their own power. The Targaryens survive, but their greatest strength, their dragons, begin to die out. The last dragon dies during Aegon III's reign, earning him the nickname Dragonbane. The dance leaves House Targaryen a shadow of its former self, setting the stage for their eventual downfall 150 years later. The Dance of the Dragons ends with no true victors, only survivors. Nearly all the major players die horrible deaths, most of the dragons are killed, and House Targaryen never fully recovers its former glory. What makes this story so compelling is how it shows the self-destruction of the most powerful house in Westeros. The Targaryens weren't defeated by external enemies, they tore themselves apart from within. Their civil war decimated their dragons, depleted their numbers, and weakened their hold on the Seven Kingdoms. The show will likely end with young Aegon III sitting on the Iron Throne, a traumatized boy who watched his mother being fed to a dragon, now tasked with ruling a realm in ruins. It's a bleak ending that perfectly captures George R.R. Martin's views on power and war. House of the Dragon is ultimately a tragedy about how pride, ambition, and vengeance destroy even the mightiest dynasty. It's a prequel that explains why, by the time of Game of Thrones, the Targaryens had fallen so far from their peak. If you've enjoyed this breakdown of how House of the Dragon will end, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which of these events you're most shocked by or looking forward to seeing. This is Explainified, and I'll see you in the next video.